Okay. So basically today discussion is for Hibernate. Okay. So we are going to discuss about Hibernate. Okay. It's basically a ORM tool. Yeah. Before jumping into it, let us see the problems before Hibernate, right? How we used to have the similar Hibernate operations, and in our basic MVC implementation where Hibernate we use particularly this framework, right? Framework or tool you call, where we use this, who invented it, what is the use of it. Let us see. Yeah. So when you try to build a application in Java, okay, uh, Java based application, we can say Java application, standalone, right? Standalone, which are running in single machine, a kind of, let's say you have a gold shop, a jewelry shop management system. You want it within your single machine itself, a jewelry shop system, jewel app, or any medical shop application, right? Any standalone applications, or if you want web interface via web, if you want to implement something using Java, we build web-based applications also using HTML backend servlets. Or to build the same web applications, apart from servlets, we have other options also like Struts, JSP, now Spring MVC, or you can use Spring-based REST implementation. Spring-based REST implementation, we are calling them microservices. Okay, so using any pattern, you can build your web applications. When you build REST-based, you may call it web or microservice or REST applications or microservices-based applications. Let it be, application can be anything, okay? Standalone or web or microservices project. Okay, so to keep information permanently save, right? To store information which is in jewelry app or medical shop application or whatever web application you are building, a online, store there you want to sell your products via, online interface, a web interface. If you want to build a system, we choose basically MVC architecture. As part of MVC architecture, we design front end. In this front end, we will have all the screens to show it to the end user, right? If it is online web app, we create all the, product listing and adding into cart, purchasing, login, such information, all such we implement via front end. And to handle that front end operations or to pull data from backend code we implement. In this backend code, we implement controllers, which will help you to read or post data to the front end, read data or send response. We use controller. Then we'll write our business operations here using service classes. And to keep information permanently saved in a secured location, we used DAOs and we connect with the database here. DAOs will connect with the database and we save our information securely here. Database will hold the complete data information. We will store it in this part via DAO. Now Hibernate tool we are going to use. as part of this DO layer only to connect with the database and to store our information permanently into the database. Not only to store, to interact with the database. Okay, so before Hibernate, how we used to implement this layer, only this part. We are aware of this part, how to create front end, how to create, back end, controller services part. When it comes to DAO, only database part, only this layer, if you want to see how we used to implement all these DAO operations. Okay, so DAO basically we do CRUD operations in DAO. The main operations what we do in the DAO layer is CRUD operations, like create tables, right? C means create tables or create records. Okay, so create tables, basically create records. Okay, create records into the tables and retrieve records. C for create, R for retrieve records from table, update records, and delete. So all these operations, create, update, retrieve, all such operations we do manage from DAO layer. We do CRUD operations. So for doing these CRUD operations, Java provided an API called Jdbc, right? So I'm given an API called Jdbc. So for doing these CRUD operations, which tool we use earlier before Hibernate or before other tools, what tool will help you here? Excuse me. Yeah. So which tool will help you here? To manage CRUD operations. So for this DAO layer, in this DAO layer, we do CRUD operations, right? So which tool helps to do the CRUD operations means Jdbc. The first option one is Jdbc. Using this Jdbc, we can able to do all the CRUD operations, creating records or creating tables, retrieving, updating, deleting, all that operations we can do using Jdbc. Okay, so in Jdbc, always, we should do these operations, right? We need to load the driver class dot for name, right? A driver we have to load. Then we need to bring connection using driver manager dot get connection. And here we used to pass the URL, username, password. Once after getting connection, using this connection, we create statement or prepare statement. Right? Then after create statement, we may execute using statement, right? Statement dot execute or execute update. Execute query. For each type of operation, execute we do for use for DDL operations, execute update for DML queries. DML in the sense insert, update, deletes. DDL creating tables, updating table in the sense alter tables. All such operations we used to do from execute method. DML operations we do here, and execute query we use for select operations, which means DRL operations. Same way in prepared statement also we used to. So after done with these operations, we used to close statements. If we open result set, we used to close result set, and we will close connection. Mandatorily, we do all these operations. And writing this code is little sensitive, right? Always loading driver, getting connection, creating statement, closing connections, closing statements. So a little bit sensitive code in Jdbc, whatever code you are writing, right? Your code may lead to resource leakages, right? Code is little bit sensitive code, right? Writing code in JDBC is like doing a bypass surgery, which means you are touching each and every point or sensitive points of database, like bringing connection directly here and creating statements directly on database, executing statements directly on database. You are doing all this. They are very sensitive. If you open a connection properly, you need to close that connection and the statements as well. If you don't do all these operations, right, memory leakage issues you will get. From database side also, database will, throw the exceptions for you. If you buy a database which is having 15 connections, without doing this connection close operation, this code, if you execute for 20 times, from the next time onwards, it may not provide you connection because you didn't close properly your connections. And memory leakage issues also might happen. And you don't know which method need to use for DDL and which method for DML, DRL, right? You need to be little focused here while writing these statements or this code, particularly in JDBC. Beyond this JDBC operations, right? Beyond this DDL, DML, DRL operations, so many things we need to do in the DAO layer. Not only basic CRUD operations, we have to do so many things apart from this basic insert, update, deletes. So to do all that, right, writing code using JDBC and writing all that statements is not a simple part. I mean, you may do that, but when you do it for one application and when you switch to next application, again repeatedly similar code or the same kind of code you need to write, always you need to take care of all the connections and exception handlings. During this code, you will handle the exceptions also. You put everything into try catch, because this code is proven to throw exceptions also, and some exceptions are compile time exceptions. They will not allow you. If you put this statement, it will not allow you without this try catch. It will say class not found exception may throw. So it's your responsibility always to put try catch, and during open connections also it will throw some compile time exceptions. Without putting try catch, it won't allow you. If you see the code, right, as I said, it is sensitive. It is sensitive, right? And it is proven to connection leakages also. Connection leakages. If you don't properly, connection leakage issues, you may get it. If you don't properly, if properly not closed, right? You need to take care of all this while writing this code. And properly, you need to use statements in a right way, right? In a proper way, you need to use statement and prepared statements, right? For few scenarios, prepared statement is the best approach. For few scenarios, statement is the best approach. You should aware of all that scenarios and you need to choose them wisely, right? Properly, you need to use them. And you have to write few scenarios, like you have to handle primary key implementation. This part you need to take care. Primary key implementation means what? For example, if you take book my show something, book my show or redbus.com, whatever website you visit and purchase a ticket, when you do that, it will generate one unique ID for you, right? If you purchase a ticket here, Hyderabad, right? If you select a movie and if you try to book a ticket, see, this interface is allowing you to choose the ticket. I mean, we choose some tickets, and when you try to do the payment, for you, it will generate unique transaction IDs once after purchase is completed, right? this record, right? My name and my email address, my phone number, everything it will record in database with the movie, which movie I wanted to watch and in which theater I wanted to watch and which tickets I purchased. In that so and so table, in one table, it will put my booking information, right? So the movie booking information it will store. Booking info table will hold one ID here. This ID is unique. So let's say you purchase ticket for one other movie, right? Movie name and theater. Maybe show timing. All this information it will show. I mean, theater number and show information. Everything it will store here. So while storing this information, one ID will be generated for you, right? Your booking ID. One ID will be generated here with something a unique number. This ID will not repeated for other booking, right? Continuously, the booking numbers will change. So such IDs generally you will not insert from your code. I mean, while booking, I am not sending any such IDs from here, but your code need to generate it. Your code need to generate and save that unique IDs so that in future, if you see any issues with your ticket booking, let's say you have transaction failure, or else when you visit the theater, somebody also having the same ticket. If you have any such conflicts, right? By looking your ticket ID on your ticket, they will find this number, and against this number, they will check who booked the ticket and whose information there in the table. So such IDs, right, in any table, generally we will generate that. User will not enter such information. So to generate such IDs, you need to implement a lot of code, lot of algorithm you need to implement to generate IDs. You have to handle primary key implementation or generators. Primary key generators. And apart from this, if some information you want to store it into the cache, right? So always I'm loading this page for this Hyderabad location. Movies may not change for every minute. If movie they put it in the book my show means that movie may continue for next 1 week, or at least from today, today morning to today last show, the same movie information may continue. So when I choose a movie for that particular day, again and again when I search, it really need not to pull that movie's information from database. It may collect that information, or it may store this information, same movie information, right? It need not to bring all this from database every time. Somewhere we should able to maintain this application cache also, right? So that application cache also Jdbc can't able to maintain. So somehow you need to handle that, right? Cache implementation. You have to, as a developer, you have to take care of cache implementation. Take care of cache implementation also. So this cache, how it will help, instead of pulling this information every time from database, instead of pulling this information from database, from your application itself, it will, pull this information, or else browser side cache also you can maintain, right? So that cache, am I audible to everyone?
Hello, sir. Your voice is breaking.
Is it same for everyone?
No, sir. It is clear for me.
Yeah. Your screen is visible, sir, and also our audio is audible.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, great. So let me know if there is any audio issue or lag in my screen sharing. Okay. So what I want to say, share here is something, the information which you're pulling for any website, not only for this book my show, If you visit any something Flipkart, for any website, right? Some data might require to pull from database always. Some data may load from cache directly. See this information I'm seeing here. Again, if I open this in a next tab, again same flipkart.com, same information it is showing. So if it is the same information, why unnecessarily it should make unnecessary calls to the database every time? On my first call itself, if it can keep this information into cache, again for the next calls, right? Next time if you do calls 100 times or 1000 times or million times also, it will not disturb your database. It will pull information from cache itself. So if you want to implement such caches in your DAO layer, right? So you need to use some third-party tools, or you need to implement some algorithm to take care of it. You don't have any support in Jdbc for this caching related things, right? And apart from all this, right? Apart from all this, the main important thing is you need to create required table structure first. Tables first, right? Without tables, we can't do anything, right? You need to create tables. So you should be well aware of how to create tables and tables designing also, right? So many of the developers might not good in this area. You need to learn this as well. Good relational tables you need to create in the database. You have to do that, right? You need to do that so that properly your application can be implemented. Your application, first thing, right? What we need to do for any application is creating tables is the important thing. First, we need to do proper analysis. After analysis, we will identify the entities, which means if you see one bus reservation system that we designed, let me show you that ORM. In this first analysis phase itself, right, we identified for that bus reservation system how many users are there. If there is an admin, what operations he will do, manage user, manage roles, and admin will create buses, bus types, bus routes, vendors. So first we identified who all there in the system and what they need to do. Once after that, for each use case, what are tables required? If admin wants to create bus or bus types, we need a bus type table. What all parameters need to be there in that bus type? Bus type, bus ID, bus type ID, bus type description is active. If it is a bus, what is the bus name, seat capacity, is it having sleeper, right? All that information, properly we need to do analysis so that we will find out what all tables required for that implementation, and each table how many parameters we need, we will identify. So after identifying it, creating tables is the main important thing that we need to do first. While creation of these tables also, right, in database layer, we'll maintain proper relationships. We'll maintain relationships like one table may have relationship with other table like one to many, many to many, one to one, right? Multiple relationships will be maintained in the database tables level. So that relations also we need to create properly. All this you need to take care before, or all these things you need to take care while using Jdbc, right? So for enterprise application development, or if you implement an application, in a faster phase, or if you want to implement your application in a very less time duration, doing all these things is not a simple thing, right? Doing all this or implementing all these things is not an easy task for us. Apart from implementing other controller part, business, service implementations, front end part, you need to spend a lot of time on this DAO layer. So to avoid that, right, on top of Jdbc or using Jdbc in 90 95 around 98 in EJB, one entity beans concept is introduced in EJB entity beans, right? EJB entity beans also a ORM tool which will solve many of these things, okay? Which will solve many of these things, right? In EJB entity beans, they given primary key generator support, right? And you need not to worry about statements and you need not to worry about connections. You need not to create them. By using Jdbc, internally they implemented a framework, right? Internally using Jdbc, EJB is a framework using Jdbc implemented. While using this EJBs, you need not to really worry about all these factors. Easily we can configure and achieve these features in EJBs. But the problem with EJB is EJB entity beans definitely required a EJB container. EJB container available in application servers. You have to use application servers like WebLogic, WebSphere. Such application servers dependency you have if you want to use EJBs. So whoever implemented EJBs, right? The same guy, he created an open source framework, Hibernate. So now it is from the company which maintaining it is Red Hat. Red Hat software is maintaining it. His name is, who is he? Gavin King or Rod Johnson. Designed Gavin King. In 2001, he designed it. So Gavin King, Hibernate was started in 2001 by Gavin King with colleagues of Cirrus Technologies as an alternative to using EJB2 style entity beans concept. So using this EJB entity beans concept, these guys designed Hibernate and they made it open source. They created it as open source. It is free to use and it is alternative for EJB entity beans. So EJB entity beans, if you choose, you need to buy these servers. Without the servers, you can't run EJBs. Like, servlets, right? Without Tomcat, we cannot run servlet application. Similarly, EJBs also you cannot able to run without WebLogic or WebSphere kind of application servers. WebLogic or WebSphere, JBoss. Such application servers you need to use who is having EJB container. So as an alternative, Hibernate is designed by Gavin King in the year 2001 with his colleagues, and it is open source and you need not to use any containers. And beautifully they designed this tool and given to us. Achieving all this is simple here. All the sensitive operations they have taken care internally so that you really need not to worry about your connections properly closed or not, and exceptions properly handled or not. Is there any connections leaking or not? And do I need to use statement or prepared statement? You no need to worry about such confusions. And generating primary keys is not your job. Hibernate will take care. Catchy implementation they have given. And if you want to create tables automatically, Hibernate will create on behalf of you. So many things it will do for us. And using containers, right? EJB containers were mandatory for EJB, whereas for Hibernate, it came up with self-contained. It is having its own self-container, like our application context, Bean Factory, how we have in Spring. Spring is having also its own self-container, right? If you want to run Spring classes, directly Spring will run on its own IOC container. Similar way, this one also, right, is having its own self-container. So on that container only, Hibernate directly will execute, so that you need not to purchase special software. Whatever Hibernate jars you will use, right? As part of Hibernate jar files itself, your container will be there. Similar like your application context and bean factory, how we are using. Similar way, self containers it is having. So that's why nowadays people are using this combination, Spring with Hibernate or Spring with JPA. Hibernate is one of the JPS implementation. We use Hibernate. So Spring always internally using Hibernate implementations for DAO part. Spring is not having any special ORM tool. Okay, as Hibernate is already proved and it is open source, Spring is not against to them. So Spring not designed any alternative for Hibernate. Spring will use Hibernate. Spring we integrate with Hibernate and we do implement DAO layer. We do implement this DAO part. We implement DAO layer, right? This part using Hibernate. And for the remaining layers, controller and service part, we will use Spring. And for integration service with DAO, we integrate using Spring only. Spring will provide that integration support also. I mean, integrating is not a big deal. In simple configuration class, we do create all these Hibernate configuration details, so that automatically that configuration is available for AutoWire. Okay. So when you want to integrate Spring with Hibernate, we use the basic annotations, right? For controller, we use controller. And next part, service layer. For service, we use @service. And when it comes to repository, we use repository. Here only we do CRUD operations, right? And how we integrate using configuration. Using configuration, inside configuration using @bean, we create Hibernate session factory. Using this Hibernate session factory only, repository will do CRUD operations. Anyway, right? Whatever is created here via @bean, that we can AutoWire using that AutoWire object, right? Your repository will handle all the CRUD operations. It is a simple flow. But before that, we need to understand what is session factory, using session factory, how to do CRUD operations, how to design Hibernate, infrastructure or all our entities, that we need to understand. Primarily in Hibernate, what you need to learn is how to do basic CRUD operations. Later we can see Spring with Hibernate integrations, how to do basic CRUD operations, like in Jdbc, right? How to do these basic CRUD operations in Hibernate. CRUD operations using Hibernate. This is not like Jdbc. In Jdbc, generally what we do, we send data from front end. So from front end, client will send the data. Let's say you have simple registration screen, name, email, address, phone number. From front end, if you are submitting data, controller will read it. Then we send it to service layer. If there are any business operations required, we do here. Then we send it to DM. How do we send if it is a Jdbc, right? How do we send and how to do CRUD operations here? We put this data into a DTO object. We put this data, we read it, right? We read it, or else by using @request body, right? We populate this into a DTO object. Let's say it is student information, student to DTO. Directly this data will be populated into this DTO. We know, right? Inside our request mapping post method, we do configure it. Or else you read each parameter request dot get name, get parameter of name, get parameter of email, get parameter of address. Right? If it is this approach, directly this data will be populated into DTO, or else each parameter you need to read, right? Request dot get parameter of name, email address. We need to read each individual parameter. So use whatever approach you want to use here. So we do populate data into DTO first. Data transfer object, we call it DTO. And same DTO we will send it to service. Same DTO from there to here we will send it, and we send DTO to DAO. In DAO we will have various CRUD operation methods. Let's say user wants to save. Here we implement a save method with this DTO input. And here, if it is Jdbc, you know what to do. You will load the driver, create connection, and create statement, execute query, close statement, close connection. Lot of statements you need to write here, and handle exceptions. All this code you will implement here. But in Hibernate, this is in Jdbc, okay? In Jdbc, you do all these steps. In Hibernate, what we do here, Hibernate is a special tool, as I said, right? We'll talk about this Hibernate tool, okay? So consider this is a Hibernate tool. So in Hibernate tool, we have multiple methods like save, update, already implemented predefined methods, delete. Okay. So the basic methods we have save, update, delete, and many other methods also. Let's talk about them. These all are already implemented. Along with your jar files, you will get them. When you download jar files and included in your application, this Hibernate layer will by default will be available for you. So this is default implementation. There will be default implementation. What we do, we put this DTO into one entity object. We'll create one more object, new student. So how we got information till here? Via DTO. Whatever user information sending from front end, we populate into DTO. Same DTO we send it to service. And while doing database operations, DTO data we store it into entity. Right? Let me name it entity, student entity. Student entity st equal to new student entity. In this entity object, we just map this DTO data. Whatever data we have in this DTO, we populate this DTO data into this entity. Let me clear it. I'll write here. Student entity we create. New student entity. Whatever data we have in DTO, we dump that DTO data into entity. Just shifting from one container to another container, or shifting data from one object to another object. Okay. We store this DTO object data into this object. Just we are converting one object to another object. Now directly you can pass this entity to Hibernate save method. You can call this Hibernate save method and pass your entity here. Whatever student entity you have, if you pass it, it will take care of all these things internally. It will take care of all these operations. It will load driver, it will create connection, it will create statement, it will execute, it will handle exceptions, it will close connections. Everything it will do. Finally, your data will be stored into database table. Right? Finally, the destination is database table. In your database table, this information, your name, email, address, phone, everything will be stored there. Whatever information you are passing via your object, right? This information will be stored into your table. Whatever name details you enter, your details will be saved here. So internally, it will take care of all the DB operations. You need not to do that. It will do for you. Okay, it will do for you. It will do it for you. You need not to do. Hibernate will take care of it. Hibernate will read data from this object and it will create SQL queries. Without SQL queries, we can't operate database. So it will execute SQL queries here and it will store information. Not only storing, you want to update, you want to delete, or you want to retrieve. You want to fetch data, we have find methods, we have get methods, we have load methods, many methods to get the data also. So all this back and forth operations with the database, who will do? Hibernate will take care. You need not to touch this code, Jdbc code. You need not to do anything. Everything will be handled by this Hibernate tool. Okay, so this framework or this tool will help us a lot in terms of database operations. We really need not to bother about sensitive SQL operations, sensitive connections, statements, result sets. You need not to worry about anything. Just you need to learn how to use this tool, Hibernate tool. You just need to know how to use this Hibernate tool. That's it. This will drive, earlier as I compared, using Jdbc is like a driving bullock cart. You need to, arrange everything. You need to drive properly. Driving Hibernate is like a Tesla car. You need not to do anything. Just you need to put your source and destination. That's it. It will start and it will take you there. So many things internally it will handle. Yeah. Now the question is how it will know this object. When I pass student object to Hibernate, how it will know that it need to save that data into so-and-so student table. If I have a table named student, in that student to table, how it will come to know that the student data need to map to student table only. And how it will know that in the student entity, if I have name, email address, phone number, same data, right? Name, email address data, how it will map to this particular columns, name column, email column, address column. How it will identify these columns and map your data. How it will identify this table and map your data. Hibernate should have some little intelligence here, right? To identify on which table I need to create data, or from which table I need to delete, or from which table I need to select. How it will know that? Like in car, how we are setting source and destination, right? Here also you need to tell that. This is my source entity, student, and this is my destination table. You need to give that information to Hibernate so that it will understand, okay, the student object need to map to student to table. Fine, all right. If you follow proper naming conventions, right? Name, email, address, only this entity and in this table, it will automatically map them. But if you use different names here, in entity, you have something student name, student email, student address, student phone. And in your table, if you have generic names like name, email, address, phone, it may not properly able to map your columns. In such case, you need to map column by column also. Otherwise, you just need to tell to Hibernate, this is the source and this is the destination. So that it can able to take care of all the operations. And to connect with the database, your tables will be part of database. Your tables are part of database. And to connect with the database, this DB information also we need to give. First time while loading your application, we need to pass this DB information also, right? Driver, which driver I need to use to connect with your database, URL, username, password, such information. we need to pass to Hibernate so that it will create connections. Internally, it need to arrange connections also, right? Mapping we need to give anyway, but to connect with the database and to do CRUD operations, it need connections also, right? How it will get connections without this information? So this information also we need to provide. Two things that we need to provide to Hibernate is properly your database connection details and properly this mapping details, your entity to table. That's it. And just you need to know how to use these methods, like how to use gears like parking gear, drive gear, reverse gear. You need to know what will take my data forward, which method will give my data back. You just need to know them. That's it. Easily you can able to make CRUD operations. So this is a simple tool that will make all this complex part or all these complex operations easier for us. Whatever we thought all these are, very complex and that we need to write and it will take a lot of time to do that. All that internally implemented and given to us. Just you need to know how to configure it. That's it. We'll start with basic CRUD operation. Okay. If you want to do basic CRUD operation, first thing, right? First thing, as I said, table is must. You need to have table. Of course, Hibernate also will create table for you, but you need to know what kind of table structure you want. So create a table. In most of the enterprise applications, Hibernate will not do table creation. All right. In most of the enterprise applications, enterprise apps will not allow Hibernate side table creation. We have that feature, but they will not allow. Basically, database query separately they will write and they will create tables. So create a table always, I will say, for non enterprise apps. Recently, I worked for insurance company. While doing POC or while even moving it to production also, right? We depend on Hibernate. We depended on Hibernate way of table creation only, but that is not recommended, right? Always you are required table structure you need to create in DB. In banking applications, whatever banking applications I ever work, they don't allow us to create tables via Hibernate. They will ask you to create tables separately. So you need to create tables separately. That anyway you have to do. Once you get the requirement, right, for any new use case. Once you get Jira story, and for that story, if you need a table, you need to create a script first. You need to create a table script. And you need to create the table into database. That part you need to do. Or else if they allow you via Hibernate also we can create, which means you need not to create table, Hibernate will create a simple configuration parameter we add. We talk about it, okay? So first you need to create a table. Next thing, as I said right here, this table equivalent entity you need to create, because your data in backend, right? In backend of your application, when you submit data from your front end forms, finally the data will be populated into your entity only. Finally, you will give entity only to the Hibernate. So Hibernate will save data which you given via entity, right? This data only it will save here. So whatever entity you are going to create, this entity structure should equal to your table structure. So when you try to create application, don't create entities first. Create tables first, and tables equivalent entities you create. Right? First step tables you need to create, then design entities. Okay, then create entities. Create entity. You need to create entity. Or it's a simple bean you can call a simple bean class you need to create with your private variables, public getters and setters. Now Hibernate should know the mapping between this and this, right? Somebody should guide to the Hibernate. When I try to give this entity to Hibernate, it should know to the which table it need to map. Something or somebody should guide. So that information we pass via Hibernate mapping files. We create a mapping files, right? We create. In this mapping files, what we will give to the Hibernate, to this Hibernate tool, right? We give some information here. What is that? Entity to table mapping. Which entity need to map to which table, and from this entity, which property or which variable need to map to which column, right? Each variable and its column mapping also we configure here, so that by reading this information, it will understand, okay, when you pass the student object, it will get this info and understand, okay, I need to go to so and so table and I need to store so and so variable into so and so column. From this mapping files only, it will get that information. So you need to create one mapping file. This mapping file also they avoided in latest versions. We can avoid this mapping file right here via annotations. Mapping annotations, when you use right, this mapping file is not required. Okay, so this one you can avoid, this one you can avoid, just to create entities with annotations. That's it. Now you should know how to use or how to save. Use session to store entity. You should know how to use the sessions to store your entity. That's it. In 4 steps, we can do this. Basic CRUD operations, right? Create a table first, and then create equivalent entity, then create mapping file, then store it. Now tell me, somebody, right? Tell me for this table, right? For this table structure, name, email address, phone number. Tell me the SQL query for the first step. For the step 1, how to create table. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Tell me the query, SQL query. How to create.
Create table name.
Create table name.
Yes,
I'm
student.
taking student. Okay. These are my columns: name, email, address, phone. Yeah.
Name varchar2.
Okay. Varchar or varchar2.
Varchar.
Varchar for MySQL, varchar2 for Arkin. You can use varchar if it is MySQL. If you are using Arkin, use varchar2. And this size. Name size, give the good amount of size, 200 characters, something. This is character space, okay? And this is data type. Similarly, remaining columns: name,
Email ID,
email,
address,
phone number,
integer, number.
In Arkin it is number, and the size maximum 12 or 15 characters. Maximum phone number is 10.
10.
If they want to add STD code, something, you may leave it, or it's your wish. Strictly, if you want to put 10 also, you can put. Now tell me, okay, name, email, address. So we can create the table. But as per, as per SQL normalizations, right? Database normalizations. Is it the good table, or do we need to add something here? As per first normal form.
Primary key.
Primary key is mandatory. Why primary key is mandatory? This is student registry. Consider like student register. This is student register in a school or college. Imagine that without having student ID. I remember from first class to my BTech, I have different student IDs for me. Without student ID, I never have, I never had any class. So in each and every class, we have some ID. Why? So they give an IDs. Without ID also, they can create, right? My name, my address, parents details they can have. Why we need ID?
Yeah, it is auto generation.
No, not because of auto generated. The problem without ID, if there is a student, what is the problem?
No
Did you guys
unique
face?
identification.
Yeah. So in my session in BTech particularly, with my name, there are 3 students. The same name. If we don't have ID, they don't know how to recognize us or how to call us. If they want to maintain our, attendance data or marks details, how they will maintain? Is we all have the same name. Maybe our full name is different, but our first names are same. So everybody should have one unique identity. If you see Aadhaar, right, everybody is having a unique Aadhaar identity. Throughout India, if you check, your Aadhaar number will not repeat to anyone. So that is your unique identity. In a table also, right, every table should have one unique column, unique identity column. We call it as primary key. Without primary key, creating table is a bad practice as per first normal form, right? You need to have one unique column which is primary key. So student ID, maybe number. So this should be primary key. So this is good practice. Without primary key, creating table is bad practice. Number, if you want to limit to some size 10, you may put that. And to make it primary key, add primary key here. That's it. Now this looks good. Right? As per first normal form. And is it really mandatory? I'm going to do Hibernate operations. Is it really mandatory here? Means yes. Hibernate will not allow you without primary key also. Without following first normal form, Hibernate will not allow you to create table. It will not allow you to map such a table which is having no primary key. If you try to map, it will not allow you. Try it if you want. You may try it. Hibernate will not allow without primary key. Hibernate strictly follow this rule. Generally, we need to follow. If you are creating a table, there should be a primary key. Without primary key, there is no meaning for your table. Okay, primary key is mandatory. Okay. So one primary key column you should have. Okay, fine. I created a table with proper structure. Now step 2. Tell me what I should do as step 2.
Insert the values.
No. Step 2 here. Create
Entity class.
Entity class. Create entity class or bean class. So public class student. So what I should have as part of this entity class?
Yeah, creation of variables.
Yeah. Create table. Now create entity. So here you should have variables. What variables you should have?
Name, email ID, address, and phone.
And ID. ID also, right?
Yes, required.
ID also. Now similar data types. In database it is number. In Java, for number alternative is
Integer.
integer or int, float or float wrapper class, long or long wrapper class. Use anything. Int student ID. Fine. When it is a bean, we generally create private variables. Private into student ID, and the next column private
Name.
data type. For varchar, equivalent data type is string name. The next private string email and private string phone number. Okay, for phone number we take a number, right? So you may put number here. If it exceeds more than 10, integer will not allow. Maybe you shift to long here. Long number. Long will allow you. Okay, now I have entity. This entity should have setters and getters. For each property, you need to have compulsory setters and getter. You need to have setter and getter here. You know, right, how to generate in Eclipse, right? Just right click and generate getter setters, or else use Lombok annotation @ to data. If you are using Lombok without setters and getters, you just use data and @ setter, @ getter. Lombok annotations also you can use. Okay, anything should be fine. Okay, step 2 also done. And step 3, create table, create entity, then next create mapping. If you are using annotations, no mapping file required. Okay, if you are not using annotations, then mapping file required. Okay, so we'll see both examples also. Okay, step 3, mapping file. So in mapping file, we do configure like this. Okay, so let me show you. So we create a mapping file, a simple XML file like this. Step 3, mapping file, Hibernate mapping. In between Hibernate mapping and Hibernate mapping, we configure a class tag. In this class tag, we give our class name. So if your student class is part of Beans package, beans.student. Okay. So mapping file main responsibility is what here? The mapping file responsibility, it should be able to map your entity to table, correct? And each variable to column also. So that is what the main aim of mapping file. So here we are mapping our class student to table. Let's say your student table name is student. We put that table name here. And your database schema. My database schema is system. If you are using MySQL, if you have test schema or something, you give your schema name there. On which schema your table is there. The schema destination you need to give. So your table now properly mapped to entity. This entity belongs to this table. And as I said, right, primary key. One primary key is mandatory. So this ID column is mandatory. This ID column is mandatory in Hibernate. So this ID will say, or this ID you consider like a primary key. ID column is a primary key column. So what is your primary key here in student? Student ID. Student ID. And the name, email address, phone number. So all your properties you need to mention here. All your properties you need to mention here. And in your table, if column names are different, if column names also same equivalent, you need not to worry. If column names are different, use a column variable or column key here. Use a column property and put your student ID. Let's say in student, if it is std_id, and here for name, std name, std email. If you have different column names, different naming conventions, you can use this column attribute, or else column is not required when you are using same names. If naming conventions are different, then you follow it. I'm just giving you example here. Otherwise, here and here, almost names are equal for us, right? When you identify different names, don't forget to map columns also here. Properly, you need to map column also. properly, you need to map column also. Otherwise, column is not really mandatory. And ID means primary key. Primary key column only you need to put here. In this ID, you should not put name, email. You can put it if you consider them as primary keys. It's okay putting anything here. But which one you want to make it primary key? Student ID is the primary key, right? So put it here. If email is primary key, put it here. So during table creation, we have taken ID as a primary key. So put ID. That's it. Your mapping also done. Final thing, you need to know how to save. Before saving it, to connect with the database, right? One more file we create. This is one-time activity, right? For any application, connecting with database is mandatory. So we use Hibernate configuration file to connect with database. For the fourth step, right? For the fourth step, first create configuration file. You need a session, right? You need a session so that you can able to save your data. So this is for MySQL. We taken the driver class name, URL, username, password, and connection pool size, and the dialect. We'll talk about these parameters. Okay. So we need to create such a configuration file in step 4. And after configuration file, right? You need to load your configuration file into container class. This is the container. Load configuration into container. So this is the way we load it. Like application context AP equal to new class path XML application context we create, right? Similarly, one config we create. On this config, we load our configuration file. Whatever file you have here, right? With configurations. We load this file into this container so that your container will have database information. Now using your container object, we ask build session pattern. This is the main object in Hibernate. Okay, this is the main object in Hibernate to do CRUD operations. Now what we do here, we create a student object. Basically consider that some client is passing this information. This is your entity object. Okay, student, then student dot set the student ID, student dot set student name, whatever setter methods we have. We call our setter methods. We pass student information here. Name, email. Address, phone number. Okay, something like this, we create our object. Consider this information is coming from front end. Front end data we load into our bean and we call, finally, this is the important one, as I said, right? From this one, we open a session. It will give one session object to us. This session is the important one for us for doing save operation. From session factory, we open a session. And using this session, we call this method, save, update, delete, whatever methods, right? This is the final step, save. And you need to pass your student object. Then Hibernate will do its operation internally. When you pass it by calling it, right? Internally, Hibernate will understand your mapping. It will generate SQL query. It will insert data here. Everything it will take care. In this step, right? So many DB operations will be executed internally. Internally, SQL will execute. So finally, doing CRUD operations becomes simple here. This is all one-time effort only. Creating mapping files, you may see it in a big picture that oh my God, I'm doing a lot of things here. But this is one-time job, creating mapping files, creating configurations. Finally, doing CRUD operations for you is single line. Save. That's it. It will take your data and keep it in database. You want to update that record by changing something here. Forget to add some essential. I want to add it. Let's add it. And you want to call update method, call update. No, I do. I want to delete the student, call delete it. So making CRUD operations become simple here for you. Right? This much easy doing CRUD operations using Hibernate. Okay. So let me show you this example in Eclipse also. Do you want to ask anything here so far? Any doubts? No?
It is
Okay. So for Hibernate examples, right? Almost all examples available here in the blog. Let me share you this link, Hibernate ORM. Go to this link. For everyone, right? I shared a link. These are Hibernate jar files. This first link. Second link is Hibernate examples. You have almost all the examples for Hibernate for your practice, right? You will get all these examples. You will see all these examples. Basic CRUD operations, primary key generators, dialect examples, cache examples, one to many, many to one, and annotation examples. So many things you have here. You may go through all of them, okay? And I'll share you one material also. Now, let's create a project. Simple, right? If you want to do a standalone application, create a simple Java project. Simple student CRUD. Create a Java project. Immediately you need to do what? Once after creation of Java project, add libraries. Go to build path, configure build path, download these libraries and extract them. Okay. You have many jar files here. Download them. Once you download, extract it. So add these libraries to your class path. If it is a web app, add the same library into lib folder. But while doing Spring with Hibernate, you need not to add them. In Spring dependencies itself, I have provided you all the libraries. If it is Spring Boot project, you need not to even touch them. Spring Boot automatically will bring all the libraries from now. For Spring Boot, you need not to worry about anything. Okay, created project and added libraries. Then let me create a table first. Create table where we do that in database, right? So let me open MySQL workbench and let me create a table in MySQL. Create a database. One new database I'll create, HIB. For Hibernate examples, I'm creating a new database HIB. Use HIB, Hibernate database. Okay. Now we will use this HIB for our applications. Yeah, let's create table. So we have table script, right? So use this table script to create table. Copy. Paste. So number is not a valid data type. Here it is int. In MySQL it is int. No varchar 2, only varchar. But if you want to execute this on RKill, you can execute it. Now create this table. What does it mean? Integer display width is deprecated. Instead of int, is it asking to use integer? Okay, alright, table created. Fine. So if you want to check the table structure. So table created with the student ID, name, email address, phone number. Done. Now create entity here in your application. Open Eclipse. Here, create a bean class, beans. Create a class, student. Okay, let's put parameters here. Private int student ID, private string student name or name, whatever column names you want. Student name, student email, student address, or just let me put name. As entity itself is a student, need not to specify it as a student. ID, name, email, address. Okay. And phone number. Maybe long phone. So private variables and click generate getters and setters. Select all. So getters and setters also generated. I would love to create parameterized constructor also, including default, because I don't want to call multiple setter methods to set data. Using one single parameterized constructor, I want to set data. So one parameterized constructor also I created. Okay. So when you create parameterized constructor, don't forget to use default constructor also. Use default, create default constructor also. Now my bean is ready. Let's create mapping file and configuration file. Two files we need to create, right? I will just copy them. I don't want to recreate. Create one more package. Resources. Let me paste it there. One file is configuration file. For MySQL, I will use that. Okay. MySQL configuration file. And one is mapping file. Let's open mapping file and map your bean to table. This is my mapping file, student bean. I have table already. The table name is student. And my database schema is HID, Hibernate schema. And what are the column names? I have name, email, ID, name, email, address, phone. ID, primary key, name, email, address, phone. And in database also we have same column names, right? In database also we use same. Okay, for ID, student ID, right? See this name, email, address, phone is looking fine, but ID is student ID we used. So this ID will not map to student ID. So when you see that different naming conventions for column, you may specify this column, otherwise not required. If you want still, it's up to you. As it is same, need not to put it. If you want, you can do it, but I'm not doing it. Okay, you want to do it, you do. That's it. And here is the configuration file where you have connection information, MySQL driver, and your database schema, URL with your database schema, username, password, and how many connections you want from your database. By default, connection pool support also it will give you. In Jdbc, will we get connection pool? You need to create. Default, there is no connection pool. And we'll talk about this HVM to DDL, this part later. And your mapping file you need to configure here, whatever mapping file you created. That's it. Everything is done. Now let's write a class for CRUD operation, save operation. Write a main method, save client. So here you need to put this code, configuration code, to load your XML files and all, right? Everything configuration is part of your XML file. Let's load them first. Load them into configuration class and create session factory. It will hold 10 sessions internally automatically because you given connection pool 10. So at a time, 10 people can interact using 10 sessions. Session factory dot open session. When you call it, one session will give it to you. Get your session and now save it. What you can save? Your student object. Student equal to new student. Let me pass details here. Student ID 1 and whose information you want to save here. Anu here. Some long phone number. As this is long value, at the end I'm adding L. This is long data type, right? Yeah. So your object also ready. Consider this is you are getting from front end, as it is not web application. I'm hard coding here, but in web application we fetch this information from front end and we can put that data into B. Now call your session dot save. That's it. Session dot begin transaction dot commit. You need to commit your transaction also. Finally, session dot close. So this is you need to do anyway. When we integrate with Spring, you will not handle all this, but remember that we do these two operations here. Otherwise, you don't see any SQL related code. These two statements, if you see, one is this object you will get from front end. Even this statement also you will not write in real time scenario. Only thing that you do in your DAO is session.save. That's it. Only one single line per save. 18th line. Only the single line you will see in real time. Remaining thing you don't write. We do it in a different way. Okay. Now let's try to run and see how it will behave. Okay. Welcome to exception. It is saying class not found. com.mysql jdbc driver is not at all there. Check your libraries. Is there any mysql jar file? You see here, apart from Hibernate, OJDBC 14 we have, but no mysql jar file. Let me add mysql jar file from Spring library, right? In Spring library, we have almost all the jar files, all database jar files. Where is MySQL? Yeah, MySQL connector. Add this and then run the same code. Again, unknown initial characters index 255 received from server. Cannot open connection. What is the reason? For MySQL, this 5th version is not working fine. MySQL 8th version jar file I need. I might download it somewhere. MySQL 8. Let me check. Hibernate jars. Where can I see? Let me get it from Maven otherwise. Maven M2 folder repository com dot mysql dot. Here 8 version jar files we have. Okay, very good. Let me copy it from there. Remove the old jar file. Let's try our luck. It is looking fine. Insert into student. But data truncation out of range. We given very big value, something it is showing exception. Let's see whether data saved or not. We have not mentioned, we mentioned size 15, still why it is unable to, something problem with that into data type. We used into, right? That's where we got the problem. So no data inserted. Maybe just limit your data in the phone number. Run it. Now, if you see, one log is printing by default internally. And if you see one insert query also showing here, insert into your schema name dot table name, email address, phone, student ID, values, question marks. If you see this, How it is looking like a prepared statement, right? It is looking like a prepared statement for me, but not created by us. It is created by Hibernate. When you call this, right, Hibernate did that. And will it inserts data with that? Yes, data insert. See, CRUD operations become easier now for us. Earlier, we used to do a lot of code. Now data is inserted. Fine. Now you want to update your record. Let me comment these 2 lines. These 2 lines are for save. You wanted to update. Simple for you. Whatever record you want to update, create that record here. As update, we apply for entire entity. You can update it. Anu here. Something ABC. I want to add at the end. And I want to update phone number also. So update is possible for non-primary keys, not for the primary key. If student ID is 1, it should continue with 1 only. Okay, if you change this and if you try to update, that record will not be updated. So for update, we use a update method. Similar like save, we use update method and run it. And check Hibernate generated query. Hibernate generating a query with update. Table name set name is equal to question mark, email is equal to question mark, address, phone number, where student ID. This is looking to our similar statement only, right? We used to write the same statement. Internally, Hibernate generated this. Not by us, by Hibernate. And check whether this record properly updated or not. So the data is updated. The data properly updated. And I wanted to delete that record, or I wanted to select the record and see the data. Save I have done. Update also done. Now I want to select and see the data. Selecting. During selections, transaction commits are not required. You know, right? In general, transactions are applicable for DML operations. You want to save, you want to update, you need to commit your transaction. Otherwise, this statement is also not required. Let me comment them. These are not required for select operations. Now, how do you select it? Just a session dot. There are 2 methods to get the data. One method is get and one method is load. Just you need to say to Hibernate, I want data. Which data? Student entity data. Just you need to give your class name. That's it. And what is your ID? You just need to give it your ID here. That's it. It will give your object directly here. That's it. Maybe you need to do typecasting here. As an object, it will give, you need to typecast. That's it. Just print your data and see whether it is giving your name, email address properly or not. Just printing name and email ID. Okay, if you want to print everything. Select it. See, Hibernate generating one select query also. Select student ID, student name, student email, student address from phone number also from student table and where condition also applying where student ID is equal to 1. Right, one SQL query generated, and on that one record whose records we have in database, that record fetching and showing. See, selecting also became easier for us. No SQL queries. Just a simple session dot get. Same thing we can achieve by using load also. In interviews in Hibernate, especially you will hear this question, what is the difference between get and load? Via load also you can do it, via get also we do it. Here also we are getting data. Same thing will happen. But there is a small difference here. Let me put one line here. Do you remember bean factory and application context? Bean factory will create objects lazily, whereas application context will create immediately. Similar way here. Now let's see load. If execute SQL query executed, where it should have executed at the line 32, right? In the line 32 itself, your SQL query should execute it. Means before this line separator. See this. After line number 33, your SQL query is generated. After this line, which means during line number 34. During line number 34, I'm calling get name. Why it is executing SQL query? Because it is lazy. Load method is lazy until unless you call your non-primary key name or email first, right? Whatever it is, phone number. It will not even touch your database until unless you call name or email parameters. Same thing, let me comment this line and execute this one. So in case of load, it is executed after line number 33. During 34 line execution, it is happened. But in get, what will happen? See, before line number 33 itself, SQL query is generated. See the difference? Get is a eager one. When you call here itself, it will fire a SQL query and it will get the data from database. Whereas load is lazy until unless you call non-primary key, either name or email, it will not fetch any data from your database. So that is the difference between both. Get is eager loading, it will fetch data immediately. Whereas in load, until you call non-primary key, it will not fetch data. So in these two ways, we can get the data also. These are for select operations. And you want to delete it finally. You want to say delete for your record. Delete it. Use session dot delete. Pass your student object. For delete also, right? You need to apply maybe entire data is not required for delete. Just to ID primary keys and student dot set ID record number 1. I want to delete it. So post to delete, you need to commit your transaction because delete is also a DML operation. Two things happened here. During delete, first it is selecting. Selecting means first it is checking whether record is there or not. Properly it is checking if your record is there or not. If record is there, then deleting it. Delete from table where ID. Data is gone. Now no data. So this is how Hibernate will help you easily to make CRUD operations. For save, you can use simple save. For update, you can use update. For delete, you can use delete. For selecting single records, we use get or load. This is how you can make simple CRUD operations using Hibernate. Any doubts so far? Did you guys understand what's happening? Hello?
Yes, sir. It is clear, sir.
Better understanding.
Right? Yeah. So I'll give half an hour break. Okay. After 30 minutes, we'll continue here in the same line. I'm not closing it. Okay. After 30 minutes, I'll show you how to fetch multiple records. Now basic CRUD operations we done, right? We will do how to get multiple records also. I'll show you. After that, few examples I'll give you for primary key generations automatically and the basic tables creation, right? Automatic tables creation. That one also I'll show you. And one example with the Spring I'll show you. Okay. To discuss Hibernate, Hibernate is having huge content. I'm not going to in depth into that and confuse you. Okay. If you want to explore, you can explore everything. Okay. Even videos also available. You may ask me that how I can understand, then go to YouTube, search Hibernate examples, Hibernate by Naveen. We have lot of examples. I mean, lot of discussions here. Against that examples with these videos, you can go. Okay, you can learn each and every topic here. Almost right, almost 35 sessions we have there. Each is having 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Okay, short discussions only. You can go through them. Okay. From this workshop or from this session, my aim is I wanted to make you understand what is Hibernate, what kind of features we have, and how to integrate with Spring. Okay, so if you understand that, that is fine, because in Spring, this layer completely avoided. I mean, you need not implement this layer. Spring made it simple. You need not to do anything for this layer. Just you need to know how to create this mapping via annotation. This is the only important thing that you need to do. This is the only thing in Spring you do. No mapping file, no configuration file, nothing. This is the only part we do. Implementation also Spring will provide. But if you don't know what's happening internally, it will be always hidden for you. You don't know what's happening internally. Okay. After these discussions, you will understand how Spring internally doing it. Okay. So yeah. Post lunch, right? We'll continue a few more examples and I'll show you one Spring integration. Okay. With basic Spring MVC and with the Spring Boot also, we'll see that. Yeah. So we'll meet by sharp 1:30. Okay. By sharp 1:30, we'll meet here. Take your lunch and come back. My mail ID. Sure. You can get my mobile number also here. I'll create WhatsApp group also. I forget that I should have created. Okay. So let me do this. Otherwise, quickly I'll create a group and send you link. Please stay there. Let me create a WhatsApp group. Please stay there, guys. I'm sharing it. And let me share you the link. Just a minute. Almost loading. Okay.
Hello, sir. I have one doubt. Can I ask now?
Yeah. Right. I shared
Hello,
WhatsApp
sir.
link. Yeah, just a minute. I shared a WhatsApp link. You guys can add yourself there. Okay. You can ask any doubts for the future replies. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sir, in that HBM mapping file, how it will identify the primary key? The first row it will take as the primary key or any other?
No. In HBM file, I said right. ID tag is the primary key tag. ID. Put this ID anywhere. It's up to you.
Then
ID
if more than one ID ID column is there on the table, then which ID it will take as primary key?
No. First, tell me more than one ID means what?
Means if there is student ID or then again one more some ID column is there, then
Now, how you will maintain duplicate column here? Duplicate variable is
not the same ID. Means
Let me put book
suppose
ID.
if there is some course ID,
Book
suppose
ID.
there is student ID also there, some course ID also there, then which
So-
ID will take it as?
So let's say here you
Yeah.
have ID, book ID. ID is student ID, book ID is book ID. Now you give an ID only here, which means what ID? Student ID. If you give book ID, that is book ID. It's up to you, right? Whatever column you have, you want to make it to map to your primary key column, you map it. Do you want to put book ID here? Put book ID. What is confusion there? You have different names. Put whichever name you want. At a time, you want to map two columns.
Sir, the table primary key mapping to which object that will take as primary key, right? Like that,
Table,
right?
primary key is student table, correct? Student ID. Okay.
Yeah,
thing.
that. Okay.
Now that I configured here as a column student ID. Now tell me from your bean class, which one you want to map, book ID or ID? Which one you want to consider as a primary key?
Okay, student ID. Then which
Student.
ID I am mapping? The
Here you need to
student
put
ID
that.
that. Okay.
If you have one more ID is a simple property for you. You said I have a book ID. That's a property. You don't call it as ID. That's a property. ID means primary key. All
Okay,
other different columns are properties. Now, one more question, right? It may not be used, but one more question is, if you have composite primary key, one table can have two primary keys, you know, right? Composite primary key. We have two IDs combination as a primary key also. Go through the video, you will see composite primary key discussion, and here you have one example also for composite primary key. Or you may ask me, you try it and ask me. We can have more than one column as a primary key also in database. You need to check that scenario as well. In such case, we use here instead of ID, composite ID. Very few scenarios you will see that. Okay, for very few scenarios you will see that in composite ID we can have two columns here. Key property, we can see two key properties. I don't want confuse now here with composite ID. Okay, you check it what is composite ID and ask me question later. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. I understand.
So yeah, that's all. Let's come back by, now it is 1:06. Come back by 1:36. Okay. Thank you all. Hi, is everybody on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll start in 5 minutes. Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay. Now let me show you here primary key generator. Okay, is everybody on? I'm going to take next topic, primary key generator. This is also one important thing, right? One important thing in Hibernate or any use case, right? Particularly when you do any create records, particularly when you try to create a record, backend side, we will have primary key column, but we will not supply that column from front end. Let's say, for example, for student itself, if you take, we will have ID, name, email, address, everything in the backend table. But in front end, we don't pass ID. We ask application to generate that ID, because if you share that privilege to user, if you ask to user enter your ID, required ID, right? Let's say you are a student, you are joining into a college, and if they ask you to enter ID, which is primary key in database side, you may enter one number, which is your lucky number. Let's say 7 you entered. Maybe some other student also may enter 7. So like this, there is a chance of having conflicts. Students don't know which numbers are free to choose here as an ID, which numbers are already occupied by other students. They don't know, right? So in such case, you should not enter ID from the screen. You should ask application to provide whatever latest is available, whatever next ID is available. So from front end, when we pass the data we will send without ID. Data send without ID. Via post method or whatever method you do, right? Via post method, while sending your JSON data, send data without your ID. Only name, then email. Right? This is how we pass, right? From front end as a JSON object, we pass the data. And this data will be populated into your entity class. So the backend will take care of it. Maybe your controller. You can get data into DTD. From DTO. From DTO to you can map this data to your entity. Then when you save this entity using Hibernate, here if you use DAO. We'll have between multiple layers, service and DAO. You pass your entity here. You know, this DTO to entity conversion you can do anywhere. Let's say you don't want here, you may do it here. DTO data you can map to entity. Then you can pass this entity to DAO. When you try to save it, Hibernate can also generate your ID. If you ask Hibernate that I don't have ID, you please generate for me. When you pass your entity here, there are many techniques in Hibernate, okay, to generate ID. There are many techniques. When you call save method, right, automatically it will generate ID. The most common technique is increment. The most common technique is increment. When you call save with increment, right, what it will do, already if you have no records, it will select maximum record. Before save, right, it will select max ID. Internally it will do select max of ID from table. What it will get when there is no record, the max ID will get is 0. So first it will get the maximum ID here, and for that maximum ID it will apply plus plus. 0 plus plus, what it will become 1. So then whatever entity you are saving, it will save with 1, the new record, whatever data you pass. And whenever you insert one more new record, for them it will select max ID 2, then it will do, I mean 1, it will do 1 plus plus, it will become 2. So for the next user it will insert. You need not to send that ID. From UI you need not to send it. App will generate it automatically. App in the sense your Hibernate will generate. How it will generate? It will get a maximum record, what you have here up to latest. On that it will apply plus plus, plus 1, plus plus means plus 1. If you have already 2, it will apply plus plus, which means 3. If you have already 3, the next number is 4, 5, 6, like that. Automatically it can generate. In our previous example, what we have done is we have given primary key while saving this record. We almost deleted record also, right? Let me save it again. To save it, we entered here 1. Whatever record you give, with that ID only it will insert. 1, 2, 3 I give it, and I'm inserting here. Data inserted. Let's check this table. You give an ID 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3 came here. Now the requirement is I don't want pass IDs. I don't want enter that IDs here. I just want to give 0. Whatever latest record we have there, from there it need to increment it. For that, do you need to add any special algorithm here? Nothing. Just to go to mapping file and inform to Hibernate that I need a generator here between ID and ID, right? For the student ID, you need to ask here, I need a generator. How? Using this generator field, you can ask here. You can use increment. That's it. Now onwards, you don't need to pass this ID. Though you pass any ID also, it will not consider it. Let's say I'm passing 888, triplet, and saving one more record, something Rajesh. Save it. Now see this, before inserting Rajesh record, it is doing select max of student ID. And let's see in database what it might have done. 1 to 4 it is taking. I given triplet, but it is taken 1 to 4. How? Already maximum record ID it is getting and it is inserting it. So giving ID is not at all important. Give 0 always. for new records. Giving a new ID here, 0. Insert it. See, always getting max ID and inserting here. 1 to 5 have taken for session. So there is no chance of getting ID conflicts here, right? As ID you are not giving, there is no chance of getting ID conflicts. And ID also it will generate in a sequential order. It will generate it in a sequential order so that you will not see any conflicts also. Whoever first in, for them it will assign the latest ID. For the next comer onwards, it will add +1 and insert. Like this for ID generation, right? Here we have multiple ID generators. Increment, sequence. For Archive database, we will use sequence here. Okay, so you may go through example and find it. If you understand the use of generator, right? You may go through that examples. Here you have multiple generator examples also. You may go through it. Okay. See, primary key generator. Multiple examples I have given here. Go through it, okay? And from my material reference also, you can read and understand easily. I'll share you this material. Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, you can go through each example and that example related content you can read. How to do each example and how to write the statements. Everything given in this book. I'll share it, okay? Yeah. Any doubt from this increment? Did you understand the need of generator?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So basically the need of generator is it will avoid you to pass IDs from your front end. Generally, for most of the records, we will not get IDs from front end. We do generate that ID scheme. The reason, if you ask user to enter ID, it's up to user choice, right? User may enter any ID. You can't control his IDs. So that's why application will not allow. If user choice, if it is user choice, for me lucky number 1, for you also 1, like that 100 people try to use 1, they will get exception here because same one you cannot repeat. It will not allow, table will not allow same primary key value again and again. So to avoid such all problems, IDs we need to generate. To generate ID, you need not to write any special algorithm. You just add this generator here. That's it. During your save itself, Hibernate will take care of it. It will get the latest ID and it will replace this 0 with the latest ID +1 and it will insert your record. So that ID generation become easy here. Nothing to do from your end. Okay. And the tables, right? I was talking about table also. You need not to create tables. As I said, table also you need not to create. If you want to generate tables automatically, this step 1, if you want to avoid, how to do that? In your configuration file, there is one property, line number 12. If you see HBM to DDL, Hibernate mapping file to DDL means database definition language. So which means in straight way, your bean, right? You have been here. Bean you map to table. It is asking, do you want to create table automatically or update automatically? From this property, it is asking, yes, I want to create table. Give option here, create. Now what will happen? Let me give a different student table name. Student underscore, let me give today date 22. Now with this name, I don't have any table in database. Go and check. Student underscore 22. No table. It is saying error. Table student 22 does not exist. Let me run my code now. I given one option here, create table also. I don't have table now for this issue record. Now run it. See, one record inserted into which table? Student 2022 table. I mean 22 table. From where this 22 table came? Before it said 20 table does not exist. Now do the select star. Now it is showing table also. Table with the data. Who created table? We did not create it. Describe this table structure and see. See a default table created with the student ID int email varchar, name varchar, email varchar with the default sizes, and for phone number big integer. By default taken. Why big int taken here? Because you are using long data type here for your phone number. Earlier, when we created for this long, we taken int, so it was not allowing, lengthy number. Now see how smart it is. It is created big int in database side. As you mentioned long there, right? It understand your requirement and created big int. Who did this? So automatically Hibernate created it. Hibernate will execute DDL operations also, which means it will create your table also. This table is automatically created by Hibernate. So once after first time creation, again and again, you should not continue this parameter. Only one time. You designed entire mapping files, all the beans. Let's say your application is having 10 tables. For 10 tables, 10 beans, 10 mapping files, everything you created. While running first time, put this create option. And immediately you need to modify it from to update or validate. Or else what happened if you continue with the same create? Every time it will drop the original table and it will create new table. Let's say, let me put one more record here. See what will happen. Create only I'm continuing. So earlier I should have say issue data in this table. Now that data gone, only one record I have here. So what it is doing internally? It is deleting your existing table, dropping your existing table. So once after first time execution, let's convert it to update or validate. We have multiple options here. Create is one option, update is another option, and validate, and one more is create hyphen drop. Create basically will do what? It will delete old table and it will create new. So this is dangerous property. You should not keep it. When you put update, what it will do, if already table is there, it will not create it. It will continue with that. And if there are any alters required, let's say one more new requirement came for student in request want to collect parent name also. Parent also now become mandatory. So parent name also added here. Set parent name, get parent name. Now I want to add only this new column. I don't want to recreate entire table. What you need to do? Property parent name. Now here the option is update. What will happen now? Let's say for the student set the parent name also. New student ABC. Existing table as it is, it should be there. And we should able to add parent name, and parent name also should save there. ABC parent. Save it. The table is altered. Your table is altered. So during insertion, it is using parent name also. Earlier, we don't have parent name here. Now select. See, for this Naveen record, there is no parent name because this is old record. But from new records, in this column data inserting, one new column is also added and data inserted. So new column is altered. If you have such requirement, you can continue with update here. In case strictly, if you don't, if you want to prohibit or you don't want to convert your entity to tables, you don't want to create, you don't want update it, just put validate. That's it. Validate always care, it will verify whether already table structure is there or not. If that is there, it will just insert your records. It won't create or it won't alter. Just it will check your table is properly mapped or not. That's it. And the last option we have create hyphen drop. When you use create hyphen drop, what will happen?
So once again, sir, excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, once again, sir, that show me that the validate means.
Validate will not do anything. Just it will check whatever columns you mapped here. Is this columns there in table or not? It will check. Now see here, I have address. I am removing address, or in place of address, I am giving address 123. Okay, a bad name I am giving here. This name is not there in the table. Now try to run it. Validate will validate that address column and say, hey man, there is no column with address 123. See, it is saying property not found. Address 123 is not at all there in your table. So just it will validate it.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay, sir.
properly your mapping has been done. If it is validate, here your field names or column names, they should be there in the table also. If not, it will throw error. Whereas create hyphen drop will do what? During your record creation, it will create table and inserts. When you try to close your session and session factory, it will drop the table. So during testing, right? For testing purpose, you want to create some records. After done with your testing, you want to delete it. You may go with create hyphen drop. Right? For most of the banking such applications, we use validate. Otherwise, if applications are not sensitive, use update. Only these two are recommended. Don't put create anywhere. My first mistake during my first assignments, I used create. I used create. For that application, there are 30 plus tables were there. For my first time application, 30 tables are there with the data. So much data client loaded in that. Millions of records were there in that database, 30 tables. What I did, I joined that project. I observed that tables structure, not properly maintained in Hibernate. I created all the Hibernate entities. And generally during practice, I used to put create, right? I mistakenly put create and executed my code. What happened? Whatever data we have in that 30 tables, right? That complete data gone. And the tables also which he created, all the tables also deleted. He created tables in SQL with indexes and all with a proper structure. Complete tables also deleted. Then client was surprised and he asked me, where is the data? And from where these new tables came. I said I use create option. Then he asked me, who asked you to use create option? Why did you put that here? So the completely data deleted, tables deleted, new tables were created. Then immediately what he did, he brought some backup and created that tables again here. And he removed privileges to me. For whatever username, password details I am using here, right? For details, create privileges he removed. So though if I put create also, my code cannot able to create tables because for this username passwords, permissions removed. Create permissions he removed. He just given permissions to just read data or insert data, no DDL queries. So then immediately updated it to validate. What else I can do? Right? So carefully we need to use this property. Right? Carefully we need to use this property. Even in Spring Boot applications also, we will see later part of time. There I'll tell you. Right? We will generally put update or validate there. If there is any create, HBM to DDL, if you observe, right? immediately remove it in any application when you see it. Okay, so this is dangerous property with create. Don't use create. Okay. Hope you understand DDL also, right? Auto DDL, how it is doing. Everyone? Automatic tables it is creating. You got it right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So automatic tables creating, automatically ID also inserting. So many things to do. During select operation, right? Let me show you. By default, cache also applied here. Default cache. Yeah. As of now, there is one record, right? Let me get it. How many records we have? Here I have 3 records. Okay. Naveen, ABC, I have 2 times. Let me take another example. Cache. Default cache. We call it default cache. Cache default. I'll just do select operation. Session dot get. I want student object. Record 1. So obviously it will give record Naveen. System dot out dot println student dot get name. My data it is giving. And you know, right, get is eager one. It will fetch data during call itself. So before this line itself, your data is fetched from database. Just execute it and see how it is running. So select operation is firing before this line itself, which means during call itself, and the record is printing Naveen. Let me repeat the same code again. This 3 lines code, which means again select operation I'm doing. Consider this is one record. Again, I'm trying to selecting the same record. Okay, try to see here, same student ID. One only I'm giving. Same student ID. So which means how many times this select operation need to be fired? This Hibernate select operation 2 times need to fire on database, right? Let's see. 2 times. Select operation fired only 1 time. Next time, right? If you see before this line number, no select operation fired. Here also the select operation should have fired, but not happened here. Why? Because by default Hibernate session, here we are using session only, right? Using session only, we are trying to getting this record, again this record, same record. When we use the same session, what will happen? Session will check whether that record already there in my session or not. It will check. If record is already there in my session, it will consider that, okay, data is already there, why I should go to database. It will not fire multiple select operations. Only 1 time it will fire. Next time, though you put this statement also, it will not fire. Because already session is holding your object, same object it is holding. Though you do this execution for 100 times also, it will not fetch from database. It will fetch it from your cache only.
Cache.
So by default, cache is applicable in Hibernate. But if you do the same in Jdbc, if you fire select operations, 100 select operation, if you fire on the same record, 100 times it will fire queries on database unnecessarily. Now see here, only first time it fired query, next to 2 times it's given the same object. So the default cache is applicable. The default cache is applicable here. I don't want to go to next level cache examples here. Even if I explain it also, you will not understand. This is not right context. We will do that in Spring Boot. Okay. Using cache servers, real-time cache servers, I'll show you next level caching. Okay. So the default cache I just shown you here. The next level cache I'll show you in Spring Boot. Now, I just want to give one simple Spring MVC example. Okay, final example, the last example. Then we'll close this session. Okay, one application with end-to-end use case. Okay, and I'll share you this link also. We all will test it. Now, let me create application student registration. Student registration app. A servlet application I'm creating. Let me use servlet, or else you can choose the Spring MVC also. Anything should be fine. Apache. Okay. Let me do it. Okay, Spring integration only. Okay. All of you must aware of it, right? Spring MVC. If it is from our batch, you must be aware. Is anybody not aware of it? Okay, just I'm considering that you all know Spring MVC. Okay, let me create a simple CRUD application here. You know, in Spring MVC, we need to configure web.xml file, Spring XML file, input page, model and view, dispatcher servlet. We all aware of it, right? Let me go to that path and bring me one application here. Right, already we have done so many here, right? Spring MVC. Let me copy it from there. I believe this is our one. Here, I think we finished it. Let me get it from there. Just I'll copy configurations and jars. Okay. Employee CRUD operation. Okay, fine. Or let me import this employee registration only instead of student registration. Import general existing project, employee registration, finish. So this is employee registration project. Here I have one action, name, email, address. I'm saving it using register button. And this is the action employee.rbu. So when I click on that, by default, all actions will be mapped to dispatcher servlet, right? So your request will go to dispatcher servlet. And for this mapping, we will implement a controller class, right? So this is our controller. In this controller, we have request mapping. We are mapping here a name, email, address reading here, and using Jdbc, we are saving it. Now we will remove this Jdbc and integrate with Hibernate. And this view resolver we configured here. So using stereotype annotations, right? So to activate annotations, we used it. And to scan our packages automatically, we used com.rbu. Yeah, this is Spring part is done. If you want to integrate with Hibernate, right? You need to create Hibernate beans. Your employee bean you need to create. Right? I am getting data for employee name, his email, and address. I want to save this name, email, address into table. But if it is a Hibernate, as I said, right? You need to create your table equivalent to bean class. So first you should create table. If you want to use auto generator, table not required. Private into employee ID. ID must be there. From UI user not sending it, but you need to generate at least. Employee ID, private string, employee name, email address. Generate public getters and setters. And I need one default constructor with parameterized constructor. Fine. Bean is created. Then what about mapping file? If it is annotation, really mapping file is not required. But if not annotation, we need to create one mapping file. Resources. Okay, already we have here, right? Copy this example, configuration file and mapping file. Let's rename it to student. employee.hvm.xml. Let's map your employee here. Beans.employee. Table name is EMP for employee table in this schema. And here I have ID, EMP ID, name, email address. So employee ID, column name also I want to same so that I need not to specify that. And I want to increment it. I don't want to create it. I want to increment it. Name, email address. Remaining columns you can do. Okay. Finally, you configure your employee HBM file here. Employee HBM XML. So as you want to create table, put here create. Everything looks fine. Libraries, do we have MySQL 5 we have, but that is not recommended, right? So let me change library also. Copy this jar file. MySQL 5 I am removing and adding 8. So Spring jar files, Hibernate jar files also available here. Don't need to add. Again, Hibernate jars. Hibernate library also available. Now what next? So I have up to controller only. And here I have data. I don't want to use this Jdbc style. Remove it. I want to save data here. How to do that? In Spring, right, we follow this pattern. IOC, right? Using IOC, we follow MEC pattern. We create employee service. One employee service class and one more class, employee repository class, repository or DAO. Now from controller to data, you need to send it to service. So whatever your service here, private employee service, EMP service, whatever it here. If this object is automatically created for you, you need to use zero type, right? On top of employee, you need to put @service. And whatever data I have in controller, I want to send this data to service. But in service, I don't have any method. I want a method something like this, create employee. And I want to pass employee object here. Employee being directly I want to send it. I don't have this method, right? Let's create. Employee object also not available. I mean, not available in the sense we need to create. In this employee object, put your data. Employee ID is not there, give 0. Name, email address we are reading from UI, right? Pass it. And pass this employee object to here. And in service class, have a create method. Service alone, it cannot able to save this data, right? So here you need to auto-wire employee DAO. Auto-wire this DAO. Now in this employee class, let's create a save method and pass this employee object. In employee service class, we don't have save method. Let's create method. And as it is repository class, put at the rate repository. Now here I want to save it using Hibernate. So in Hibernate, the main important object to save is session factory. You need a session factory object. Session factory. You can auto-wire the session factory also. But yet not created, we will create it. Okay. Now using the session factory, call open session. And call save. Call begin transaction dot commit. Finally close session. That's your operation is done. And this factory object we need to create, right? As you need to create factory object, you need one configuration class. In this MVC configuration class itself, like internal resource view resolver, create session factory. I said, right, configuration class is very, very important class, which will help you to create all the configurations like session factory. Even integration also we do with this one only, right? Hibernate objects you create here now. How to create simple code. Put this code there. Only one time your session factory object will be created and it will be returned to you. Return as such. It is confusing. The reason is configuration annotation also we use. So give fully qualified path. This one also same name. Now from resources loading MySQL configuration. So now your session factory also ready. Via session factory your DAO also ready. Now everything looks good. Let's run this code and check how it is working. So now here we use to create option and the table name expecting is employee. We'll go and check whether the table is created. It is saying table employee does not exist. Yet table is not created. Maybe during first time save operation it will create. Now try to insert data. Hello Swami, your data created. Go and check. Employee table created and data also insert. See, auto generated also, table also automatically generated, and your data also you would able to see here. Okay, let me run this in NGRock and ask you to create your records. So you all can test it. Go to this link, whichever I share now. Okay, and register yourself. Yeah, click on this link, whatever link I shared. Do you guys able to register? As soon as you registered, your data will be populated again. See, Gopal Krishna accessed already. Seshu created. Reshma created. Rajesh, Mahtab, see, Bhargavi, Raju. Yeah. So this is how your IDs, if you see here, automatically generated. See, for Swami 1, for Gopal Krishna 2, Seshu 3, Reshma 4, Ahmad 5, Rajesh 6, Bhargavi 7, Patil 8, Sheila 9, Swami 10, Madhuswami again registered, right? So now it's not so difficult for us, right? Doing CRUD operations. It became easy for us. Earlier we used to write a lot of code for save, update, delete. Now it's simple. Just be integrated with Hibernate. Hibernate session factory taking care of it. Still somebody see the pain here. You said nothing to write, only one line. Why you are asking me to write 4 lines of code here? We have one more option also. Instead of this session factory, let me auto-write Hibernate template. There is one template class given, Hibernate template. This is a template class given in Spring only. Now instead of session factory, right? Let me create one more method. Save to method. With this template, I will save it. In Hibernate template, you need not to do anything. Just to do template.save. Okay, simple. This template internally will have similar code. Just you need to create this Hibernate template reference also here. Okay. Use again same code. Create Hibernate template. Create a Hibernate template. Many ways, basically. We have many ways to do this. So after session factory, right? Here, create Hibernate template. new Hibernate template, call create SF here. So whatever session factory object you have, that will be passed here and template object will be created. So template is following template design pattern, right? So template means basically all the code will be implemented as part of it, and they will give one method to you. So via that method, you can make your operation simple, easy. If you see here using this template, simply we are calling save. Now from the service, instead of calling save, call save to method and save the employee. Let me restart it now. With the Hibernate template also, see how CRUD operation will be handled. Maybe again refresh your URL and pass the data. Let me insert myself, register. Now this time by using Hibernate template, my data inserted. Hello Naveen, your data created. Go and check. Oh, see the problem? Create option we maintained there. I lost the data. Your data gone. Create option I used there.
Yes.
Create option I missed. I mean, I forgot to change it. After first time, you should not keep it here. See what happened? Completely our data is gone. Hibernate template by default, it need to commit your data. I'm not sure why it is not doing, but by default it will commit. Let me commit it myself. Template dot. Just a minute. One extra property I think we need to add. Yeah, maybe let's use flush option. Okay, careful, right? Validate, yeah. I changed it to validate because our data is gone. Register. Employee ID in employee table. I'm not sure why it is giving because it is already there. Missing column employee ID in employee bin. At least update. Yeah, data created. Right, so data is not flushing, but the similar code should work. Somewhere one extra configuration param I need to add. Hibernate template not flushing data. I do remember one extra column added. Set auto commit. I don't think this is the one. Let's add it. I don't think this will work. I will check it, okay? But this is the right way that we do, right? Using Hibernate template. If you are going to provide custom implementation. But in Spring Boot, right, we will not even do this implementation. This DAO implementation, we don't do. By default, there is a repository pattern that provides the entire implementation. Okay, that provides the entire implementation. Let me show you one advanced example. One advanced example. You may generate it here using Bootify. Okay, same employee management I'll create. Now I'm using Spring Boot. Okay, com.rbu student tab Java Maven front end I want. It will generate front end also. HTMX in your front end with Moody to all browser interactions, creating else. Okay. So I wanted to use MySQL Hibernate only. See, This is a tool, okay? If you are not aware, fine. Here automatically this tool will generate Spring and Hibernate code with front end everything. Complete code it will generate. So I'm using Hibernate, right? Actuator. Set up entities. I want to create one employee entity or customer. It is student management system, right? Still fine. Customer. I'll consider customer like student here. Name with validations. Email. Address. Everything code it will generate. Download code. Let me run this in STS. You see here it will use advanced concept. Okay, here it will use advanced concepts like annotations and a repository path. Even it don't create session factory, Hibernate template, blah blah blah. You did right. So much being created here, mapping file created, configuration file created. This configuration mapping is not required in Spring Boot case. Only one entity we create. That too with annotations. That's it. Let me import it. Just pass your properties here. That's it. Database properties we need to pass. Just I'll copy it, okay, from one of our branch. Yeah. Just a minute. Let me. Please stand by. Okay, let me see up to what we can add. Let them add here. Application properties we need to add. This is the project. So here you need to add your DB properties, URL, username, password, URL. We created URL and database schema is HIB, HBM to DDL. Yeah. See, in Spring Boot also we have this property, update or create, we can use. Let's save it. And it is showing the error reason. Spring Boot latest executes in Java 17. Okay. Server dot port is equal to something 9090. Okay. So the same properties, if you see here, data source, URL, username, passwords, we have given here, so that you need not to configure any this file, right? Configuration file. You need not to configure any configuration file, which is having this property. Similar, right? Your driver, URL, username. Connection pool properties also you can set here. You have, if you see, max waiting time, DBCP2, maximum connections also you can set here. Okay, so everything can be configured via properties file. And if you see your entity, right, here you have your entity customer with entity annotation. That's it. And for primary key, here it is using @ID annotation. This ID is equivalent to ID in your mapping file. This ID. When you use annotation, we use this. And the generated value we are using identify or increment. This is generator type. Identity we use in MySQL. In Oracle we use increment. So this is equivalent to this generator. And remaining columns, just the same names we have, as we mentioned, not null, right? So it will not allow null values. Nullable false means it won't allow name, null, email, null. Compulsory you need to enter them. That's it. In place of getter setters, we have Lombok annotations, @setter, @getter. These are Lombok getters and setters. Right? When you use Lombok, you need not to worry about getters and setters. And finally, coming to repository here, right? If you see, there is no implementation. Just one interface will be there. Customer repository extends JPA repository. That's it. During runtime, DAO will be provided for you. By default, Spring will do that. You need not to implement anything for DAO. The DAO implementation is completely avoided. So till now we learned here, do this, that, for what? For doing CRUD operations only. But Spring given one advanced repository implementation here, you need not to do anything. Just to create a bean class with mappings, that's it. It takes care of all CRUD operations. How? At runtime implementation will be provided. So this is my REST call to create customer, right? Here is the REST API implemented post. Here our data will be populated into DTO and calling service create method. Service create method will do what? Customer service class create method we are calling. So this customer service method calling repository save method. but this repository is an interface. No implementation. Still, it will save your record. You have nothing to do. Just auto-wire your repository wherever you want and do CRUD operations. So here this method, just your object, customer object passing here and calling save method on interface. But during runtime for this interface implementation will be given. Spring default implementations are there. Those implementations will be substituted here for this interface implementations. You know, right? When there is an interface dependency, automatically implementations will be injected. The most eligible or the most, available one will be auto-wide here. Using that auto-wide one, automatic implementation will be auto-wide here. At runtime using implementation only, it will save your record. But as a developer, you need not to do anything. Just to create this entity is enough in Spring Boot. Right? The evolution started from Jdbc to EJBs, then Hibernate, finally Spring JPA repository with the 0 implementations given. Still, this one also will work. And as Spring Boot app, application is running in 9090. Tomcat is started. And the code I have not implemented. Using Bootify, I generated it. So this is very advanced online tool. Not belongs to Spring. A third party given this. Right? If you are interested to use this, you can use. So create customer. See, validations also given. Customer name mandatory, email mandatory. You need to provide name, email, address. Save it. Customer record is created. And verify your database. What is our table name? This is our domain. Yeah, customer, right? Using the same name, one table will be created there. Check customer table. One record is inserted. Now you may access this one via NGRock. Okay, already it is running, right? Now you may try this as well. You may try this, okay? I'm sharing this link as well. This is implemented using advanced repository pattern. You guys can register. I shared the link. So now I can see your data here also. Nobody. Sheshu registered. Gopal. Wow. You did duplicate submission, right? Gopal 4 records.
But the status not given, sir. Whether it is inserted or not.
You are getting on your screen itself, right? Your new record. On
No,
your
sir.
screen itself. See. I'm creating a new record.
Status is not.
Yes. No. Just understand this. Add customer.
After adding successfully installed, like that message is not.
Go with the back list. We'll get all the.
No. You will get, maybe it is taking some time.
Okay.
You should get message also. Maybe response time.
Okay, sir.
If you run it in local, for me initially it came, right? See, immediately it will go to that screen. Because via network we are running it, right?
Yes, okay.
So it is taking long time.
Okay, sir.
See, 43 records created. Yeah. So this is the advanced concept in Spring Boot, right? This is the style that we follow. In Spring Boot, we follow the repository style over there, okay? They made it simple. But when you look into it, you should be able to understand what's happening internally. One bean created and one interface given, nothing there. DB side implementation. So you just need to create your tables equivalent to bean classes here with this entity annotation and primary key column, non-primary key columns, everything you need to map. And just your DB properties you need to configure here. Your driver name, URL, username, even driver name also not required. By default, if it is MySQL will be loaded. See how simple it is. Okay.
So then why we need to learn that
To
Hibernate
explore
and
more.
JDBC?
Yeah, good question. If you want to understand what's happening internally, or if you want to customize this, or if anybody asks you to implement pure Hibernate style only, we should be in a position, right?
Okay. But latest technology now onwards, we need, no need to use that Hibernate and JDBC technology, I think.
We don't write
Only legacy applications we can.
Yeah, maybe for legacy applications you can see the code. And here, right, particularly we don't really write any code, but internally the similar implementations it will use. You should not be in a position that how it is working internally, right? Now you are aware how or in which way they implemented it, how internally sessions are working. If there is any customizations required, you will be in a good position to do that. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly legacy applications will follow that. All the latest applications will follow this repository pattern. I don't say don't learn Hibernate. You need to learn actually. Basically, for these generators and all, right, you need to apply. This is not avoided, right? Anyway, you are adding generators part. In sometimes, right, when you use different implementations. Now it is MySQL, it is fine. But rather than MySQL, if you use MongoDB, MongoDB also is having repository one. If any new database, if you choose, for that databases, there maybe Spring also not providing this repository implementation. In that case, you need to provide your custom implementation. Maybe for such scenarios, the first example, right, which I have given, this will be useful. The web style implementation, right? MVC style implementation. You may follow this approach.
Yes.
And for interview sake also. In interviews, they don't leave us without Hibernate questions. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. go through these examples and videos if you have time. But if you ask me, really need to spend a lot of time. If you have time limitations, really not required. But if you have time, go through them. Okay. Tells you from the designing point of view, the mappings, if you learn, they will help you to, design the entities. Designing entities is also not an easy task, right? Once after analysis, you should be in a position that you need to create good entities with relationships. If you go through all that examples, you can be in a position that you can create good entity relation scheme. Okay. Yeah. I think that's all for today. From Monday, we'll continue our boot sessions. Okay. Another 2 minutes. Huh?
Okay,
Yeah.
sir.
Sir, this video will be uploaded in the YouTube, right?
Yeah. Post this session, it will be uploaded. Maybe tomorrow it will be available for you. Okay. Yeah.
Sir, you said you will share some material.
Yeah, I
video.
have. Yeah, in our group, I'll share it. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So check that link. Already I shared in the chat. Sign up yourself in that chat group. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all, guys. Thanks for your time. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Bye, everyone. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye, sir.